Hello, my name is Greg Ardrey. I'm here with my project for the Ohio University Student Expo and want to give a little introduction to everybody about what it's about. My project is kind of a reboot of a computer animation that I did 30 years ago as an undergraduate student at Northern Arizona University. Back at that time, I was finishing my bachelor's degree in broadcasting and decided that I wanted to make a demo video and an opening title for it. And my final project that I did in my computer animation class at that time was to create an animated logo. This is one of the first computer animation classes that was offered, and it was such a new technology that up until then, the only way I was able to study computer animation was to actually go to technical school and do coursework in drafting and computer-aided design. I started working on this rebooted logo in 2020 when I finished up my second graduate degree in educational technology. I wanted to create an updated version for my new demo reel, so I started working with 3D modeling in Blender and got partway through that process but ran out of time, so it had to go back to the back burner until I started taking courses in Unity here at OU and decided to incorporate that logo into some of my projects I was doing here. The project I'm showing today is a virtual reality project, and the logo has been converted into a kind of spaceship so that I could do a flyby, similar to what I did with the original animation from the early demo reel. The new version would take the form of a video game cutscene, which could be included near the end of the same demo reel. The original logo highlighted 3 areas that I focused on in my undergraduate studies: video, computer animation, and film. The new logo would highlight my 3 graduate degree majors: Information Systems Management, Educational Technology, and Mass Communications. Because it was being used in a cutscene, it had to be an actual playable element in the game, and the viewer had to not recognize it at first, which is why the action starts inside the logo ship, then moves outside as the big reveal. My first use of the 3D logo object was as part of a VR and platform game that was created for the 3rd assignment in the VR Interactive course. This served as a test run on importing the 3D object created in Blender to the Unity gaming engine and debugging the physics and rendering workflow. One thing worth mentioning at this point was the logistical challenges in this process. I am a non-traditional student in the PhD program, working a full-time job and taking 2 classes per semester while living nearly an hour and a half from campus. Because of this, I did not want to complicate the work of other students and elected to work on this as a solo project rather than as a team project. Since I was working on this project solo, it also followed that it made more sense that I use the VR equipment I had at home to save the drive time to and from campus. The problem was that the Grid Lab uses HP brand VR headsets running on Windows mixed reality platform, whereas I have the Oculus Rift S, which uses the Oculus platform. In short, they spoke different languages. So that 3rd assignment was written using the Oculus software development kit. Importing the object worked except for rendering issues where some elements were invisible during gameplay. This was traced to a setting in Blender that caused Unity to interpret some objects as light sources rather than solid objects. I modified the settings in Blender and re-exported the object, then replaced the old version in the Unity project. This became what I would describe as version 0 of the final project. Everything worked, but this was still only on the Oculus platform. Around this time, our class began looking at an alternate software platform that was supposed to be compatible with either Oculus or Windows Mixed Reality. The ability to develop it on my home system and have it work on the school systems held a number of advantages, so I decided to recreate the work I had done so far in XRITK, the Unity XR Interaction Toolkit. Then continued working on the animation elements in that environment. This would become version 1 of the project. After importing the object from Blender, along with other digital props from the Unity store, and recreating the settings such as materials and physics, I found that not everything had translated from the Oculus platform. The XRITK uses different objects for things like the player camera object, which means their in-game dimensions and physics are different. In a platform game, this can be a real problem because if gravity doesn't work in a predictable manner, you can't jump or fall. However, the teleportation option that replaced the walking simulation in the previous version was working, so you could still explore the decks of the ship. Since the stated purpose of the Expo project was the animation, I decided to focus on that. Version 2 is the first version to implement the Unity Cinemachine add-on component that allows for using multiple virtual cameras and includes things like a dolly camera and track option. This is the technique that I used for the original logo animation with a dolly and track, so it was a natural choice. I used this tool to create a three-dimensional track for the camera to follow. The next issue was to tell the camera where to aim so that it would always be looking at where I intended it to look. My first attempt was to use a second track with a target on it for the camera to follow, but this was glitchy and I soon abandoned it. The final solution came from a YouTube how-to video and involved using multiple cameras on the dolly and track, each tracking a separate look-at target. To switch between them, each was given a priority value and turned off using an animation timeline. The first camera was set to the highest priority value and the last one the lowest. As each was turned off, the camera with the next highest priority took over. This worked, but the transition between cameras was glitchy, so I looked for a way to smooth out the transitions. I found another YouTube video on how to use Cinemachine track in the timeline to transition between virtual cameras in a manner similar to video editing software. Version 3 is the end result of the changes that needed to be made to make that happen. When I play the timeline back, it looks pretty good other than a little fine-tuning of some of the waypoints on the dolly track and the exact locations of the look-at targets. Unfortunately, when I play the game itself in a VR headset, the animation does not match with what is shown when playing the timeline. As a final last-ditch effort, I made a fourth copy of the project and downloaded the latest version of Unity Engine and imported version 4 of the project into the newest version of Unity, in hopes that there might have been a known issue that could have been fixed. Unfortunately, this made no difference in the playback in the VR headset, and at this point, I ran out of time to have everything working for the Student Expo. However, I did accomplish the stated purpose of the project, which was to have an animation using the new logo ship that I could use near the end of my demo reel. I was able to create that in a version that was compatible with both Oculus and Windows Mixed Reality. The remaining issues will require some additional work to figure out, and development will continue beyond the scope of the Student Expo. I don't have a finished project to share with you today, but I've been able to give you some insight into the process of creating a VR game in Unity Gaming Engine.